Welcome all. I call this meeting to order. And if we could rise for the invocation, and Mr. Jones, if you can kindly accommodate.
Let's bow our heads, folks. Dear Heavenly Father, we know that you are always near us and beside us in all that we do. We ask that you be with us this evening as we consider the affairs of this, our great city. Guide us and direct us that we may do what is pleasing in your sight. We pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you. Okay, roll call, Madam Clerk.
All present excluding Ms. Wilson.
All right, and then could I have a motion for the certification of the closed session, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, Madam Clerk.
Councilmember Abbott?
Aye.
Councilmember Berlucci?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Tower?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson's absent. Councilmember Wooten?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you've certified the closed session to be in accordance with a motion to recess.
Okay, could I have a motion to certify the minutes of the special formal session of October 20th, 2020?
Second.
Motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Abbott?
Aye.
Councilmember Berlucci?
I'm going to abstain on the basis I was not present.
Thank you. Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones? Councilmember Moss? Councilmember Rouse?
I do abstain. I was not here as well.
Councilmember Tower?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson's absent. Councilmember Wooten?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye. Okay, we're going to move on to Mayor's presentations. The first one scheduled was for the Native American Heritage Month, but the Chief Emeritus Lee Lockamy from the Nazman Indian Association was unable to be here, so we will reschedule that. And now it is my pleasure to recognize the 2020 Sister City Association of Virginia Beach Youth Ambassador installation, and we can call Carolyn Garrett to come forward and introduce a fine member of our city. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wood, City Council members, and City Manager. I am Carolyn Garrett, as the Mayor just indicated, and I'm President of Sister Cities of Virginia Beach. And I have the distinct pleasure tonight to introduce our new 2020 Sister Cities Youth Ambassador. And it's such a pleasure. We do this every year, and each year we've been so fortunate to have wonderful, wonderful young students apply. And these students are really great representations for Virginia Beach. Eleni Segerbloom, this year's 2020 Youth Ambassador, is a student at Cox High School. She's also attends the Governor's School, and she is in the, help me out, the musical theater, as well as I know that. And Eleni can sing, dance, act, and we've seen her do all of those things, so I am very happy to present Eleni Segerbloom.
Thank you, Ms. Garrett. Good evening, Mayor Dyer, Vice Mayor Wood, City Council members, and City Manager. My name is Eleni Segerbloom, and it is truly an honor and a privilege to serve as the Youth Ambassador. I look forward to the work that I can do to celebrate our relationship that this wonderful city of Virginia Beach has, excuse me, this wonderful city of Virginia Beach has with our 5 sister cities and our friendship city. Like my mother's favorite song always said, "Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me." Thank you.
Thank you. And if I could say, the Sister Cities program is a wonderful program that involves us working interactively throughout this world, and there are so many young people involved. And to acknowledge two people, Ruth Smith is here, who served our city magnificently for many, many years, and also to Vice Mayor Jim Wood, who is actively involved and made a number of trips himself, once again, helping to make Virginia Beach great. Okay, at this point, I am going to read a resolution in recognition of a group called VB Home Now. Whereas VB Home Now Foundation was founded as a 501c3 nonprofit organization in 2016 to support and enhance our community system of services, programs, and facilities to prevent and end homelessness. And whereas VB Home Now Board of Directors have been unwavering ambassadors for our neighbors in need and have successfully mobilized our community to address homelessness. Whereas more than $1 million in private donations have been raised to support the work at the Housing Resource Center and address key needs in the community. Whereas this year, the foundation will invest more than $180,000 to provide resources, create partnerships, and address gaps within our community that directly impact the homeless and at-risk populations, including short-term financial assistance that will help families who are connected to the Virginia Beach Homeless Service System to obtain or retain housing. More than 77,000 weekend meals that will be distributed to students experiencing food insecurity in partnership with the Virginia Beach Education Foundation. And workforce development, health, transportation, and other programs that alleviate barriers to housing that will continue to be developed and enhanced. Therefore, be it resolved that the Virginia Beach City Council hereby expresses its appreciation to VB Home Now's current and past members of its board of directors, including Deborah Baston, Ray Bjorkman, Linwood Branch, Joshua Coe, Barbara Taylor Creech, John Edwards, Mary Donnan Harrison, Robert Jones, Steve Kelly, George McDonald, John Oliveri, Sherry Pitzlides, Wayne Sawyer, Reverend Daniel Michaels, and James Waldred for their outstanding contributions to our city and their dedication toward making this homeless rare, brief, and non-reoccurring, given under our hands the 10th day of November, 2020. Will somebody, Andy, please come forward with your group and be acknowledged, and I understand there is a presentation going to happen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With me tonight is Ray Bjorkman, the chair of the VB Home Now Board, and Ruth Hill, our Homeless Services Administrator, and Ray's going to make a presentation for you.
Okay. Welcome.
Welcome, and thank you for welcoming me, Mayor, and Mayor Dyer and Vice Mayor Wood. We and all the council members, a little less than 4 years ago, out of thin air was created the VB Home Now Foundation to continue and move in a path to help assist the public-private partnership for the neediest among us. You as a council were part of, the biggest part of playing the role in accepting the challenge to move Virginia Beach in the 21st century and build a facility that gave an opportunity for so many lives to be changed. Not a place just to live, but a place to change and to thrive and to grow. I'm happy to tell you that in less than the first year, 38 families came in on the family side alone, and 38 families left with housing, with jobs, with stable opportunities, and to be a part of the community. So we're more than thrilled, and on behalf of a very humble and very appreciative board, all volunteers, we have no overhead, to be able to say that we've raised now $1.35 million that turns right back into the city. It's a fulfillment in our heart, and it's a fulfillment for the causes that we all believe in. So you guys were the big part that you listened, you heard from the citizens of this great city and said, you know, we're going to do it. And you invested a lot of money over in Witch Duck Road, and it's changing lives today. Those are just pieces and parts. So for us, in less than 4 years, to raise that kind of money in different economic times by people in our community, I'm happy to tell you that 5 churches invested over $300,000 in this presentation that I'm going to give you. People like Charlie Barker, the first person we talked to, didn't have a relationship with Charlie then, do now. He asked us to come speak to his entire organization, 800 people, and I talked for maybe 8 or 10 minutes. It was at the conclusion of that, he said he was committing $250,000 to our city to give back $50,000 a year. That was a real boon, not only economically, but to have somebody like that step up to the plate and say, we believe in what you're doing. And the Bible teaches that a vision fulfilled is a tree of life. And so we're standing here today in that vision being fulfilled. The board of directors and this group of people that are cobbled together to, with their own busy lives to do this on behalf of the neediest among us. It's my great honor tonight to present to the council this check for $1 million that goes right here within our city. And while all of those people were mentioned by name, it goes without saying that going out and communicating a challenging time in life and people's lives is not the highlight of everybody's day to think about it, but these people have taken it upon as a personal cause. And so we're not only thrilled for what has been done, but we're looking forward to what's going to happen in the future. So thank you so much for the recognition of those folks and all that we're able to do for you as our city.
Well, let me just say this, and I can't say it enough. The strength of Virginia Beach are the people of Virginia Beach that give their time, talent, and treasure to help out their fellow citizens that are in need. And this is just an exemplary example of what is going on in Virginia Beach and why we are such a magnificent city to live in. Thank you. God bless you for what you do and will continue to do. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next on the agenda is an public hearing on an amendment for FY 2021 Resource Management Plan School Reversion Funds.
Mayor, we have one speaker, Barbara Messner.
Good evening, Ms. Messner.
Good evening. Okay, on the public hearing on the reversion funds for the schools, yeah, there isn't enough due process. We already had a budget this year, and a lot of the money for the schools, you're amending the budget that's already been passed. And a lot of the school money is not going directly to the schools and the children in the classroom. A lot of it's administrative and to tourism. I was really shocked that the members of the school board voted, even though they didn't have advance notice, to give $350,000 towards an event at the beach. And I found out after that the city pays $250,000 for all of the special events to the promoters. And I think that the promoters should be paying for it, not the citizens, because we have $3 billion debt. So, anyway, thank you.
That's all the speakers, sir.
Okay, we're going to move on to the consent agenda, but first I'm going to read the script for speakers. I want to remind everyone that the City Council speaker policy that allows certain representative of groups to speak for 10 minutes applies only to planning items. All other speakers, whether speaking individually or on behalf of a group, will have 3 minutes to speak. Speakers are reminded that comments during the formal portion of the meeting must be limited to the subject of the item that is being considered by the council at the time you are called. When speakers are called on each item, the clerk will call for those individuals who have signed up to speak. After those who have signed up to speak have spoken, the chair will ask if there are any other persons who wish to speak on the item at hand. Those speakers will be allowed to speak and will be asked to give their name, address, and telephone number for the clerk to record. We've had several items with only one speaker signed up. As such, the city clerk will call the speaker and identify each item that they have registered on. The speaker will have 3 minutes to comment on each item. Again, the speaker must limit his or her comments to the subject matter of the items they have signed up to address. Finally, I call upon all speakers and all persons in the chamber to be civil in their discussion and decorum. Whatever views you hold and wish to express, the City Council wants to hear from you and to ensure that all viewpoints and all persons are respected. The best way to do this for all of us is to strive for civility and respect. Okay? All right, I guess.
Mayor, we have Ms. Messner signed up on all items. My understanding is the only thing being pulled from consent at this point is number 2.
That is correct.
So, Barbara Messner, if you would like to come up and make comments on all items other than item 2. And the first item is for deferral to November the 17th is going to be for consideration. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Good evening. Okay, J1. Okay, this is to amend Section 7 of the Agricultural Reserve Program, reference eligibility criteria requested by Ms. Henley. I just think because of lack of due process, which I brought up, and a lot of people don't come because of the mask mandate and the limited seating. We don't even have the tables. We still don't have the tables. And this is, okay, so I just don't think this is the time to be amending it. And, you know, it was a lot of pages. It was 103, but it was a lot of details. And most people don't have time to go through it. A lot of these things are legal. And I wish Mr. Moss, who used to post on his page, would email, because I've requested, you know, details on this, on these things. Yeah, the Agricultural Reserve Program, that's when we had the green line. And as most people remember, you just approved a convention center for the new Delta Marriott over at Shore Drive. So everything is commercialized in the city, and there's a lot of high-density problems. I watched like 5 minutes of the new chief talking about the crime and Mr. Bellucci's comments. When we have high-density, uncontrolled growth and problems with jobs for everyone, not just some people who lobby more than others, but you have big city crime. And Mr. Bellucci mentioned if gangs were involved. If he had been paying attention before he even ran, Randy Forbes and Bobby Scott mentioned that in 2005 before Governor Kane cut the funding in 2010 to police. We've had problems with police retention for a long time. Okay, 2 is pulled. 3, amend the city code. A, clarify law clerks as non-merit employees. I'm opposed to anyone, getting raises without merit. Section 2411, emergency management coordinator. I don't know why there's changes. And C, number of members of the public library board. There's too many council-appointed boards, and we are not allowed to have that information prior. You go into closed session to discuss them. And at one time, right after Mr. Tower was sworn in, I was allowed to speak twice, and now no one is allowed to speak on appointments. I don't think council should be appointing Economic Development Authority, planning and wetlands board, everything under the sun. So we need to decrease staff, not increase it. Okay. Like I've said before, I wish more people would read the agendas and come out to speak. It's a lot of work. Okay, number 4, authorize the 12th supplemental master water and sewer bond resolution since February of '92, and the sale of bonds, $101 million. If we didn't have uncontrolled growth, flooding that has not been addressed, and all these problems, we should have fixed the infrastructure decades ago. Mr. Moss ran on that in 2011 and also ran on upgrading Princess Anne High School, and we're still waiting for that. So, yeah, I'm opposed to new debt because we have $3 billion debt, and a lot of it isn't being paid down. We could use that money to pay higher salaries for the police, fire and rescue, instead of some of the other incentives that they get to endorse and support some of the incumbents. Okay. 5, authorize and direct city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement with the Hampton Roads Regional Groundwater Mitigation Program. I didn't agree with Mayor Obendorf, but she was opposed to regional. There's too many regional programs in the city of Virginia Beach. Air money should not be paying anything or merging with any other city projects. Okay, 6, ordinance to release $30 million of capital projects, CIP, operations facility, renovations of municipal center buildings 1, 2, and 11. So you're taking $30 million out, and you've already been giving money from the tragedy fund. There's no real accounting. I've gotten some of the accounting, but now you've switched, from money for the tragedy fund, which all of it did not go to the family members. It went to relocating people to Sabre Road and a lot of other places. So on top of the renovations, you're keeping Building 1, and there's a brand new hideous Taj Mahal that I saw near Building 14. So I just don't like the way the money's allocated, and I think the priorities are wrong. We could have fixed all these problems years ago. Okay, Ordinance 7 from FEMA. I'll pass on A. B, a cooperative agreement grant. Our firemen are overworked, and so are our police, and, I don't understand. There's just too many disasters. We have disasters here, but I think we need a larger force because a lot of these fire stations, you need more manpower, and I think it's really weird that you merged with the military. So because of the new Cavalier Hotel, so the fire department would be able to reach those areas. Okay, C. I'm going to skip on the rescue team because, we appreciate it when other teams come here to help us. Okay, 8, accept and appropriate $24,000 from Department of Homeland Security. Purchase tracking systems and personal protective equipment. It's not the equipment, and it's not, but the city in 2017, the NAACP was asking about body cams, and we didn't have body cams for all the officers at the mass shooting, and I still don't know how many have them now. But I just think the city needs to budget better instead of using COVID money and getting federal grants, state grants, everything, all this appropriation, it's our tax dollars and there's only so much. Okay, 8, ordinance to appropriate $1.8 million and authorize $1.1 million grant to the Virginia Beach Community Development Corporation, which was created by the city, and provide $700,000 to the Development Authority, Virginia Beach Economic Development Authority, which leases and sells their land to mostly private developers, and requests the city auditor to audit once a year instead of every 3 years. That's a no-brainer. Why hasn't it been done? And what about oversight for the auditors? Because I haven't seen that many audits lately. 10, ordinance to appropriate corona relief funds for the school operating budget. Most of our kids haven't gone to school since March, and there's been major problems with the not WebEx, but Zoom and all these programs, and sometimes inappropriate things that parents have complained about. So I think we need to find a way to have our kids back in school. Like you're already opening the sports center, but our schools aren't open. And I saw a large group of kids playing basketball in the near Lynn Haven Middle School, and it's so sad to see them playing with masks on. It's really not healthy to be running around wearing masks all the time. Okay. 10, that's on the schools, and like I said, we shouldn't be having festivals on the beach to fill hotel rooms and make money that stays in districts. The entire Vibe district was created. It's state-funded and city-funded, and not everyone has the same taste. I don't particularly find graffiti on our streets and buildings and everything all over the place. There are some great artists, but I just don't think painting our city and all these buildings is the best use of our funds. They may volunteer their time, but, okay, let's see. Okay, on the schools, A is supplemental staffing, personnel, protective equipment, cleaning supplies, technology to support distant learning. Why does it cost so much more for distant learning when the kids aren't even going to, most of them aren't even going to school? Okay, B, Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund, $1,634,662. 11, transfer $264,158 within the 2020-2021 Fire Department operating budget, FEMA cooperative agreement, purchase equipment for Virginia Task Force Team. We've had FEMA, I remember when they went after 9/11, and I think the city should budget for all types of emergencies. Okay, I believe that's all, correct?
Thank you, Ms. Messner, appreciate it. Mr. Wood, can you do the consent agenda, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move for approval under the consent agenda of the following items under ordinances and resolution. Item 1, ordinance to amend Section 7 of Appendix J Agricultural Reserve Program, Ray eligibility criteria, and that's consent to defer to November 17th, 2020. Item 3, ordinances to amend City Code A, Section 2-75, Ray clarify law clerks as non-merit employees. B, Section 2-411, Ray Emergency Management Coordinator. C, Section 17-3, Ray increase the number of members to the Public Library Board. Item 4, resolution to authorize 12th supplemental master water and sewer bond resolution of February 11th, 1992, and authorize the sale of up to $101 million in refunding bonds series of 2020. Item 5, resolution to authorize and direct the city manager to execute a memorandum of agreement, Ray, the Hampton Roads Regional Groundwater Mitigation Program. Item 6, ordinance to release $30 million for capital project number 100291, operations facility renovations, Ray renovations of Municipal Center Buildings 1, 2, and 11. Item 7, ordinances to accept and appropriate from the Federal Emergency Management Agency to the FY 2020-2021 Fire Department operating budget. A, $208,246, Ray reimbursement of costs for the deployment of the Virginia Task Force 2 Urban Search and Rescue Team to assist areas impacted by the Oregon wildfires and tropical cyclones Laura and Marco. B, $987,213, Ray Cooperative Agreement Grant that continues operation of the Virginia Task Force 2 Urban Search and Rescue Team and authorize 0.2 FTEs. Item C, $13,464 for the FY 2018-2019 and $83,833 for the FY 2017-2018 budgets. Ray Cooperative Agreement Grant that continues operation of the Virginia Task Force 2 Urban Search and Rescue Team. Item 8, ordinance to accept and appropriate $24,010 from the Department of Homeland Security to the FY 2020-2021 Fire Department operating budget, Ray purchase of a tracking system and personal protective equipment. Item 9, ordinance to appropriate $1.8 million from fund balance and authorize a $1.1 million grant to the Virginia Beach Community Development Corporation and provide $700,000 to the Virginia Beach Development Authority and request the city auditor to include annual audits of the VBCDC in the audit schedule for 3 fiscal years. Item 10, ordinances to appropriate in coronavirus relief funds to the FY 2020-2021 schools operating budget. A, $11,677,033, Ray eligible expenses such as supplemental staffing costs, personal protective equipment, cleaning supplies, and technology to support distance learning. B, $1,634,662, Ray consistent with the intent of Elementary and Secondary School Emergency Relief Fund and Governor's Emergency Education Relief Fund. Item 11, ordinance to transfer $246,158 within the FY 2020-2021 Fire Department operating budget from the 2017 FEMA Cooperative Agreement Grant, Ray purchase equipment for the Virginia Task Force 2 team. So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, do we have a second? Okay, Madam Clerk.
It's about, on item 6, releasing the $30 million to get the renovations of the buildings back on track. There's been some confusion about the $10 million that we had hoped we were going to be able to get from the state. And I know that some of our delegates and senators valiantly tried to get $10 million from the state for us, and one of the ways they thought they were going to be able to do it was to have it go to a road project, and then that would free up money for the building. And the road project that was going to go to, I think, was the NEMO 7A. But that didn't work, and I think that $10 million came out of the governor's budget this week. And there's some concern that that means that that road project is going to be delayed. But we assumed when we adopted the CIP this year that we were not going to get that money, And so that road project is funded and is still planned to go forward next summer to begin construction. And by our doing this, it frees up the money to be able to do the buildings. So we're good on our projects. We're sorry we didn't get the 10 million from the state, but our projects are still funded and online. And I just wanted to clear that up because I know there's some concern in the Sandbridge area that the NEMO 7A was not going to go forward, but it is. It's funded. I talked with folks in Public Works today to make sure I'm right. It's funded and is still planned to go under construction, if everything goes well, next summer.
Thank you,
Or
Ms.
fall.
Henley, for that clarification. Okay?
Councilmember Abbott?
Aye.
Councilmember Berluci?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Tower?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson's absent. Councilmember Wooten?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
By a vote of 10 to 0, I apologize, you have approved the consent agenda as read by Vice Mayor Wood.
Okay, we'll move on to item J2 under ordinances and resolution. Resolution to adopt a city policy for public outreach and engagement rate development applications that require city approval requested by Councilmember Henley. I understand.
Yes, the first speaker is Todd Solomon, and after Mr. Solomon will be Barbara Messner.
Good evening, Mayor Dyer, City Council members. I apologize. I didn't realize it was going to be deferred. I didn't get a chance to watch you in the informal, but since I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and speak anyways. I want to thank you for proposing this policy. We've been down here for, I'm a member of the Shore Drive Community Coalition, current president, Cape Story resident. I've been down here in front of you many, many times, beating the drum of civic engagement. So anything that adds additional civic engagement for requirements, for applications, we support 100%. So we appreciate your efforts to add this into a system as a requirement. We understand that, based upon the Westminster Canterbury application and the Willis Wayside application and those things, both of those having issues that, it's a good time. You've learned from those issues. Hopefully this will help future additional applications have a better policy. It's also good to hear that it was kind of ironic because I didn't think that this policy had any public or civic engagement part of, it didn't go out and ask citizens for input for a public policy, civic engagement. So it's nice to hear that. I think that's my understanding is what I've been told, that you're going to go out and reach out to citizens and groups to have some input in this civic engagement policy. So that's nice to hear. I would ask that that the majority, almost every application on Shore Drive in the Bayfront area is going to require this. So it would be nice if you got the Bayfront Advisory Commission and even the Shore Drive Community Coalition, add them to your list of people that you would solicit input from, because every application, again, is going to have to follow this. One of the issues that we found, the developer did hold some meetings, the developer did things that are required in this. What's kind of missing from this policy is the civic, or the city's portion of it. There's nothing in here requiring a city planner, a city staff, a knowledge expert, a non-biased person to be part of these meetings that you have in your level 1 outreach. And also yourselves, a representative, city council member, to be part of these outreach, these conversations, that you're requiring them to do. So it'd be nice. That's what was missing for Westminster throughout the 9 months. There was no city staff at any of these meetings. There was no council member at any of these meetings. So it'd be nice to require that. You could have whoever's in the district of that application, the city council member, be part of that meeting. That way you don't have to publicize it. It's only one person. If you do have a conflict of interest like we had in Westminster, maybe they can ask an at-large to take their place. If that at-large has a conflict of interest, just keep going down the line until you get through all 4 of them. If you have 6 or 5 of you have conflict of interest, then maybe it's probably not a good project eventually. So at least have a city council member there, a city staff person. So
Thank you very much, Todd.
Next speaker is Barbara Messner. After Ms. Messner is Martha Theriault.
Yeah,
Welcome back, Ms. Messner.
thank you. Mr. Solomon made some excellent points. But he had a group for several years that was started with Betsy McBride and Jim Spohr, and it was Hampton Roads Center for Civic Engagement. So this is something that's been an issue for a long time. Everyone doesn't have a civic group. This is a very transient area. A lot of people don't really care or know what goes on. So it shouldn't always be a civic group. Should outreach to all the residents. And yeah, I think it's really strange that the developer would be communicating with the residents. Yeah, before I forget, yeah, speaking of who the outreach is, we have 11 members of council, and most of them are advocates for special interest, and nothing's changed. You might talk a little bit longer during election and budget time, but very little has changed. And I've come before you on 31st Street, on Owls Creek, and it starts out large groups just like the Sandbridge people, and then it morphs into something else and something else. And a lot of these documents, they aren't signed. In eDocs, where you look up for the full agenda, we don't really get that in a timely manner over the weekend. Yeah, I just think you could do a better job instead of saying that you're going to reach out. Why doesn't everyone have their own town hall and meet with the residents and the at-large people? You shouldn't meet with somebody else, and bring all your staff with you. You should be available. I appreciate the fact that Mr. Jones was going out to a lot of the short-term rentals, but there's only so much time, and I think, as I've said before, you should get all the information before you vote, and some of these things shouldn't be voted on. It used to be 2 weeks ahead or a couple months you'd transfer something. So we definitely need a better process. Thank you.
The next speaker is Martha Theriault. I apologize, ma'am. And after Ms. Theriault is James Knoll.
Welcome.
Good evening. I'm Martha Theriault. I'm a long-term resident of Virginia Beach. I have 2 homes, one at the ocean front and one in the Bay Area. I wrote my comments. I came here tonight to speak to you on the subject of communication, or lack thereof, between the governing body and the public. Please keep this in mind as you contemplate the intention and outcome of Ms. Henley's proposed resolution. Recently, it came to my attention that a powerful city commission, the RAC, had been circumventing open meeting requirements, and that this council had actually passed a resolution that had come from these stealth events held at the new Marriott. Upon learning this, I contacted City Attorney Rod Ingram and shared the information and my thoughts and concerns. Rod was quite helpful and shared that while his job is to represent you in the city, your job is to represent the people of this city, and so he recommended that I contact you. Since I've been an involved citizen for many years, I was aware that there may be difficulties doing so, however. In the past, there have been times when my emails and letters have gone unopened and/or unread, and so I decided to call some of you. In fact, I called 8 of you using the phone numbers listed on the city's webpage. This, too, is a bit problematic since one council member has, quote, yet to set up her voicemail account, and others left no greetings to know whether the number was correct or not. Still, I was able to speak with 5 out of the 8, and I wish to thank Barbara Henley, Lewis Jones, Jessica Abbott, Sabrina Wooten, and Michael Berlucci for taking the time to give me their attention and care. But though I was able to connect with 5 of you, it was not to be the case with the other 6. Of those 6, I do not trust 3 of you, so I did not bother leaving messages. The other 3, I'm very sorry to say, totally ignored me or blew me off. This was especially frustrating since I supported them, you, in your elections and obtaining your council seat. Does this mean that they, you, ignore everybody? Or does it mean that they, you, only respond to certain people? I've been following council for many years now, and I know many of the people you put on commissions, boards, and committees are actually on many commissions, boards, and committees. Given the issues of cronyism and nepotism do in fact bother many in this community, and since you are employees to us taxpayers, as Mr. Moss likes to point out at times, I believe it appropriate that you refine procedures to select people for your quasi-government groups who are not your friends, political supporters, family, etc. Expand the gene pool, please, and answer your phones and read and respond to your emails. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next speaker is James Knoll. And he will be the last speaker as well.
Welcome.
Welcome. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Mr. Vice Mayor, members of City Council, Mr. City Manager, welcome. Thank you for having me this evening, and thank you for all that you do. My name is James Noel, and I'm speaking here on behalf of the Franklin Johnston Group this evening. Taylor Franklin wishes he could be here and sends his regards. Specifically, speaking on behalf of the Franklin Johnston Group with respect to item J2, the policy for public outreach and engagement for development applications. I think many of the items were noted already by Todd, but I think we are most concerned about the fact that there are some ambiguities in the policy. Some of the standards could be potentially challenged, and at the end of the day, we're most concerned that, as Todd noted, not enough public outreach was given to both developers and community groups for those that would be impacted most by this policy. And as a result of that, we strongly recommend and encourage deferral as well. I'm here to take any questions that you might otherwise have.
Any questions? Okay, thanks a bunch. Appreciate it.
Thank you all. Have a good evening.
Okay, Ms. Henley?
Well, I, was appointed by the mayor, along with Mr. Rouse, to look into this issue, and I kind of consider my role at this point complete with this idea out here. So where it goes from now is totally up to the council. Our feeling was that it does need a lot of public input and public outreach and public participation, and that a way to do that would be to do a trial for a period. And that's why it's pretty ambiguous at this point, because it needs to be developed. And it would seem to me that it would be developed best with experience and with people trying things, simply because it's going to be very, very difficult to have meetings and so forth in the way that we normally do. So yes, it needs to be developed, but it needs to be developed with input from everyone. I think over the past several weeks, and I think this has been out here about two months, the draft policy that has been out and worked with some. That I've been telling folks, how about sending your written comments, because really being in a group and making that personal discussion that we are used to having is just very difficult to do with COVID. So how you do going forward is up to the council. But I do think it's something that needs to be done. It needs to have input from everybody, the citizens, the developers, the city, and everyone. And how you do it is going to be very difficult. But looking at it, trying it, and having people develop it through a trial is just the idea that this is putting forward. And so going forward, it will be up to the council how to determine to do it. So I will defer. I'm going to defer it until next week, asking that it be on the workshop for discussion, because otherwise I'm afraid it's going to die. And where you go from there will be up to the council to determine where to go with it. So I'm hoping this can be on the agenda for the workshop next week, and council can determine what to do with it going forward. So I'll move deferral to workshop
Dehaney,
November 17th.
Oh, my apologies, isn't the workshop scheduled for the 24th?
We could put on a workshop for the 24th. The 17th, we have the 5-year forecast.
Okay.
And that's going to be about a couple-hour conversation. So we could put on the 24th. That's okay, Ms. Henley?
Okay.
And that would be a scheduled workshop?
Okay, March 24th. And as I said, thank you for the opportunity to look at it, and this was our recommendation, and we did our best.
Okay, Mr. Rouse?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to thank you for appointing me and Councilwoman Henley to this task of really making sure we can have public outreach and hear from the public as well as applicants in this process going forward. I want to thank Councilwoman Henley again for all the work that she's done and it getting us to where we are. I think having to be where we are and with this policy, just want to be very, very clear that it's just a pilot program, that it was, all the things that are in it are completely voluntary. And it's just to kind of gather experience and see where we are. But understanding that, I think we have a lot more work to be done, a lot more outreach to do, as far as with communities as well as applicants, to really strengthen this policy here. And so I'm looking forward to getting this into the workshops where we can really develop this. And I think it's going to, I want to just talk to my colleagues, it's really going to be helpful for our colleagues to really hear from you all's districts on what, they think can really improve this, because I think we all understand how tough it is really trying to have and conduct businesses, meetings throughout our city. So I'm going to look forward to our workshop in it, and I just want to thank Councilwoman Henley again for the work that she's done, and our staff as well for bringing us to, getting us to where we are. So just want to thank the staff for all the work they've done also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rouse. Mr. Berlucci.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to take my opportunity to thank Councilmember Henley and Councilmember Rouse for their work on formulating this proposal. I think from the experiences we've had in the last year, it's very clear that there is a disconnect in some cases between applicants and members of our community and neighborhood communities, and the spirit of this policy was developed to help to bridge that divide and to close that loop. However, the policy was formulated with really little or no impact from input from community, neighborhood groups, civic organizations, and applicants, the people who are involved in making the proposals that would be germane to this policy. And therefore, I think it is really incumbent upon us, as was pointed out by Mr. Solomon, that a policy about public engagement has had no public engagement. And one of the explanations for the lack of public engagement has been the pandemic. And of course, that's a very valid and reasonable explanation. However, the pilot program, as discussed, is one that would impose these conditions for public engagement on applicants and neighborhoods also during a pandemic. So we can't apply an excuse for ourselves that we would not convey to an applicant and to neighborhood groups. And so I absolutely respect and appreciate the effort. I express the content, and I know how hard it is to create something and then subject it to scrutiny. And so I'm very sympathetic to that, and I don't want to be in the practice of scrutinizing other people's work because I know they put a lot into it. However, the reality is this policy is not ready, and I don't think that one workshop in 2 weeks from now is going to make it ready. So what I would recommend, and I hope for the council's consideration, is that we defer this policy indefinitely, still having the workshop on the 24th, but I think even having a workshop on the 24th will, in my estimation, not give us the time to create a policy that is ready for public consumption And therefore, I think the most appropriate course here would be an indefinite deferral. And so that's what I would recommend as a substitute or friendly motion.
Mr. Moss?
Well, first of all, I feel badly for Ms. Henley because we asked her to do something as a council and she took the initiative and I think it wasn't her intent to have a vote this Tuesday. I think that, but won't get into the details of that, but I appreciate her effort and she's been very kind to publicly take the accountability for how we got here. But in my written comments that I did submit in advance, as was requested, I do recall, and I would hope that one of the inputs that we would get would be, you remember our current city manager talked about how in their community of Cincinnati, they had these boards within parts of the community. They were formal established boards to adjudicate and facilitate. So maybe when we're looking at a pilot, maybe we should be looking at places where they have in place institutional infrastructure that represents the community, where you can see, will it work where you have that? Because if it won't work where you have it, it certainly isn't going to work where you don't have it. And that would give us an opportunity to have that kind of input. So as we look to a pilot, I hope we could get some good insights from our city manager as to how that community board level thing kind of worked. And maybe that might be a concept that we could look at for places, and maybe Shore Drive is a great corridor to looking at that, or I don't know. I just don't want to lose that insight, because obviously they were dealing with some very controversial projects that the city manager talked to us about at the time, and they had a mechanism for trying to adjudicate that so they weren't adjudicated here on Tuesday night. So I would hope that that would be part of the input that the process could take, because some of these things are going to come to us, COVID or not. There's applications in the pipeline, many of you which know what they are, that are going to be controversial, to say the least. And so maybe we can have something that could work. I'm not saying it could, Mike, but might work using webinar or other technologies, because I think we're going to be in this situation for a while. But that's just my thoughts, and I appreciate Patrick can help us out. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? You know, if I could say that, you know, I think, first of all, I want to thank Ms. Henley and Mr. Rouse for bringing this forward, because obviously it's an important consideration. But I think what we have the opportunity now, and we can certainly talk to Mr. Mahoney about his experience, that, you know, what they had to maybe even take this to the next level and build a better mousetrap that, you know, that is a win-win situation, you know, for everybody concerned. With that being said, would it be advisable to make the primary motion for an indefinite referral, but with the understanding? Okay, we didn't get a second. I would say, so would it okay to be Michael's motion to be the primary motion, given there was no second? Okay. All right. Do we have a second on Mr. Bellucci's?
Second.
Okay. Discussion. Yes, Mr. Rouse.
I don't want to prolong the discussion. I just want to be stated that this is just a starting point.
Yep.
You know, and this is just a good effort to make sure we are reaching out to the communities as well as applicants, and making sure that whenever we have a development or land use or what have you, that we are trying to make sure we get everyone's voice and opinion and concerns unheard, so we can move forward together. So.
Yeah, and I concur, and once again, we have, you know, the workshop coming up in a couple of weeks, and then we also have a retreat coming up, which might be a little bit of a discussion there also. But once again, you know, to make this a council priority, to, you know, just make the city more effective and efficient. And then, you know, concurrently, we're also trying to improve the planning process and permits and inspection, and just have a better overall fit. Mr. Bellucci.
And I'm sorry for belaboring the point as well, but if I could just say that, you know, I just want to emphasize what I already stated, which is my appreciation for the work that was already put into this. And I think that the product in the end, with community engagement and with input from neighborhoods and from stakeholders who are in the applicant community, will strengthen the product. And I would just say to Councilmember Henley, who obviously is very passionate and experienced and capable to bring this policy forward, that in fact, I would recommend that the work isn't done. I think it's just beginning, and I think if she would, consider remaining engaged in that work, the product. Well, I would ask
in the
you-
Marine Corps, you never volunteer.
Respectfully, I would ask you to reconsider that position, because I think our city would be well-served if you would continue with the public engagement and with continued dialogue with your perspective and experience, and I know we would be well-served if you continued that effort. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Moss?
Well, I don't mind the indefinite deferral with regards to a decision, but an indefinite deferral without some set of milestones that gets you to some place where you can decide is truly basically saying it's a low priority, which means no work will get substantially done because no one sees where it's going to amount to anything, and participation wanes when people. So if we're indefinitely deferring it because it's not right for implementation and decision, which I kind of heard what my colleague said, which I don't disagree with, is different from saying we're not going to establish a milestone for ourselves to how to get to a point. Maybe that's for the discussion on the 24th.
Yep.
But if we don't have a milestone in the timeline, then we are really giving lip service to the indefinite deferral. So I want an outcome of that thing to be, what are the milestones that we're working on to get us to a place? I'm happy to be a part of that if that works. One thing about being retired, I have more time. But that's what I want to get to my colleagues, is come to a timeline to produce product that gets us to a point where the indefinite deferral is over and the decision point is there. Even if the implementation is delayed, at least we know what we are going to implement.
Could I
Thank you
say
very
speak that I think it would be prudent that during our conversation on the 21st, that we establish timelines and objectives and, metrics for this? I don't think that would be a problem. Ms. Henley?
I do want to say that I was very encouraged by the cooperation that I've received, from the input that I received from the building community in willingness to try this and to work with this. I think the very fact that it started out as a voluntary thing without being mandatory was very helpful in having that attitude. And I want to thank the people who did get in touch with me, because some people did hear the things that I have been saying for the past few weeks and knew that this was coming, and has indicated that they would be willing to try some of these things, knowing that there was going to be a trial and knowing that it was going to, assuring them that it was going to give them choices and so forth. I think the thing is we've got two extremes here, and to get everybody to the middle is going to take a lot of effort. And that's what I just really don't have the time to do. It's going to take a lot of effort, and it's going to take a lot of willingness to work together, a lot of willingness to have give and take. That's why, I think trying it is kind of, maybe it's not as onerous as it sounded to the building community at first, because I got to tell you, they were really upset when they saw, some of them, when they saw this on the agenda. So I think it's really going to take a lot of work to get this right. And my concern is that we're going to be having applications filed in the meantime, and I was really looking forward to having them try to comply with some of these things voluntarily. I hope that will still happen, because things are not going to stand still while we sit around trying to come up with the right thing to do. So I just want to thank those people who have called me and who have sent in their comments with suggestions and their willingness to try it. I was very much encouraged, and I really want to tell them how much I appreciate their attitude. And going forward, I hope that will continue.
And be assured your efforts, Ms. Henley and Mr. Rouse, are appreciated, and we will build upon this. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Madam Clerk?
Councilmember Abbott, oh, I'm sorry, it's for indefinite deferral.
Indefinite deferral.
Thank you. Councilmember Abbott?
Aye.
Councilmember Berluci?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Against my better judgment, aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse?
Aye.
Councilmember Tower?
Aye.
Councilmember Wilson is absent. Councilmember Wooten?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
By a vote of 10 to 0, this item has been deferred indefinitely.
Okay, Mr. Vice Mayor, can we go on to appointments, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Nominate the following people to the Community Organization Grant Review and Allocation Committee: Robert Buzzy Hoffheimer, representing the Public Library Board. To the Green Ribbon Committee: William Allman, Jason Barney, Robert Bourdon, Karen Forget. To the Military Economic Development Advisory Committee: Lauren Heckelman. To the Old Beach Design Review Committee: Patty Jarm, representing resident in the Old Beach District. That's it, Mr. Mayor.
The vote's open?
Councilmember Abbott?
Aye.
Councilmember Berluci?
Aye.
Councilmember Henley?
Aye.
Councilmember Jones?
Aye.
Councilmember Moss?
Aye.
Councilmember Rouse? Councilmember Tower?
Aye.
Councilmember Wooten?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Wood?
Aye.
Mayor Dyer?
Aye.
By a vote of 10 to 0, you have appointed those as nominated by Vice Mayor Wood.
Okay, is there any unfinished business? New business? If I can bring, if I have the privilege of bringing something up under new business. As we know, between the COVID and, safety and a lot of considerations going on, this council and the community has significant challenges. As a result of some of these challenges, we, with the help of Council Lady Wooten, we reinstituted the African American Roundtable and have reached out to many of the civic engagement. And I was encouraged by a number of folks, both on staff and, without in the community, that some form of, formal minority engagement, which would be specific to inclusion and diversity, might be in order. And we have been talking about this for a couple months, but, given the election process, I didn't think it was appropriate to bring forward the concept of a mayor's task force on inclusion and diversity. But I'm going to go ahead and move forward with that now, and I've asked former council lady Amelia Ross Hammond, to help chair it. But once again, the actual mechanics of what we're going to be doing will be brought forward to this council. But once again, the idea is to build that community and unity. And this group would also work in concert with the manager on things like the diversity study and moving forward with other objectives. So, with that, once again, I think this council and the management are, dedicated to moving forward in this regard. So I just wanted to bring that forward. That being said, let's adjourn, and we're going to go into open mic and public comment. Thank you.